defining internal audit. Post discussion about detailed curriculum of the section 1 and section 2. Today we'll discuss about section 3, that is investigation. This module consists of total 10 chapters. Chapter number 1 is about planning and conducting a fraud examination. Means what are the different methodologies, what are the different things which a person should keep in mind while planning to do a fraud examination, and also how can we develop a fraud response plan. So this chapter is about to start with the investigation process. Before we involve into the investigation process, what are the important things what a fraud examiner should do before we start the fraud examination. Chapter number 2 is about analyzing document. So means in this chapter we'll be understanding what are the rules and regulations of collecting the documents. As we know, while we'll be doing investigation process, we'll be requiring number of the documents. So what are the different rules, that how can we actually obtain these documents? And not only the obtaining documents, we'll be talking about the handling of those documents. Means once we obtain these documents, how we have to handle, what are the mistakes which we must not do while handling these documents, and also to talk about the custody of documents. Once we handle the document, how we have to who will be the actual person with whom custody the documents will be, and after that the possession of the documents, means the you can say preservation of the documents. Once we get the documents, where these documents should be preserved for future and for the future reference, maybe in the legal process or maybe while deciding about the fraud factor. So this chapter is all about documents. Chapter number 3 is about interview theory and applications. So this chapter enables a person to understand what are the different interview techniques which can be used in a investigation process. So whether it can be admission seeking interview, or it can be general interview, or there are the different other forms of interviews techniques also. So we'll be talking about the different way how a interviewer should prepare for the interview, how they have to do the note taking while during the investigation process, the interviews, and also the different type of the questions what a person should ask when he is conducting a fraud examination interview. Next chapter is about interviewing suspects and signing the documents. So when we are doing any of the interview with person who is the highly suspect in entire this process, then our mindset should be different than the interview which we are conducting with the person who is least suspects. So in this interview, while we are doing the most suspect person, our methodology should be quite different, and also the preparation by the interviewer should be much higher than the other one. So in this chapter we'll be understanding how to prepare the room of the interview, what should be the timing of that interview, and what is how we have to take the notes while we are taking the interview. And also it talks about the entire different steps in the assessment, and also the different steps in the admission seeking interview process. So that's all. This chapter consists of all these things. Chapter number 5 is about covert examination. What is covert examination, and in what cases this covert examination will be helpful? In the simple words, I can say covert examination is use of detectives, use of surveillance. So what are the different right things which should be done while doing the use of detectives or doing the surveillance? What are the things which must not be doing, which must be avoided while doing these kind of the covert examination? So we'll be talking about the situations where this covert examinations works well and where this doesn't work well, and also the different type of the informants who can provide information about the suspect. So we'll be understanding all these things in chapter number 5. Chapter number 6 is about source of information. Now again we have to understand from where we can actually collect the documents. Means it can be public record or it can be non-public record. And also this chapter talk about the details about which record is public record and which record is the non-public record. For example, a photograph uploaded on a Facebook profile of a person, whether it is public document or not public documents. This will be understanding in this chapter. So this is one of the example only. We'll be having clear-cut understanding about this public records and non-public records and how to deal with these records. And also, as I discussed, we'll talk about the social media documents and what are the privacy norms we have to keep in our mind while dealing with social media documents. Next chapter is about data analytics, and we'll be understanding first what is data analytics, and how can data analytics helpful in a fraud examination. What are the tools available in data analytics? What is the key concept of data analytics, and how can data analytics report can give the results, whether it is textual analysis or the visual analytics. So we have to understand all these things before we start the data analytics, and also once we complete it, how can these results really be helpful in fraud examination. So all these things will be covered up under chapter number 7, data analytics and reporting tools. Chapter number 8 is about digital forensics. So now in this chapter we'll understand what is digital evidence, the evidence which we have discussed earlier. Now what are the digital evidence and how can we actually obtain these documents evidence, and what are the different sources of digital evidence. So we'll be talking about the cloud forensics as well. So this chapter covers about all of the digital area of the forensics part. Chapter number 9 is about tracing illicit transactions. So we have to understand what is tracing, what is the tracing process, how can we actually trace the illicit transactions, what are the different type of the records which can actually help in tracing. For example, credit card records, bank account records, digital transfer records, or it may be wire transfer records. So all these kind of records can actually helpful in tracing the transactions, from where these transactions get started and now what are the different elements in which it routed through, and then finally where it reached to. So all these things will be understanding in chapter number 9. Chapter number 10 is the very important chapter, is the reporting of fraud examination process. So in this chapter we will be understanding the report drafting techniques, what are the things we should keep in our mind while drafting a report, whether we are supposed to give a conclusion of the investigation process or we just have to give the facts only, what are the different visual aids we can incorporate in our report to make it more effective and more informative. Apart from it, we'll be understanding the different structure of the report. How can the report should be structured, whether it should be structured periodically or it should be structured on the basis of materiality. So all these things will be understanding, and last but not least we'll be understanding the different reporting mistakes what a fraud examiner normally do, means what are the precautions which we have to keep in our mind while drafting a fraud examination report. So this section, which is investigation, start with the planning of the investigation, planning of the fraud examination, how we routed through the entire process, and ends up with the report and the submission of the report to the stakeholders of that report. So in this chapter, in this module, we'll have complete understanding about the investigations. So by the way of this video, we have completed 3 sections of the CFE course. Section number 1, financial transaction and fraud scheme. Section number 2, law, which talks about the legal factor of this investigation process. Module 3 is the investigation. What are the different things we have to keep in mind? What is the right way of doing an investigation? And now, in the next video, we'll be talking about section number 4, which is the fraud prevention and deterrence. So, and by this, at the last, we'll be in position to understand entire curriculum of the CFE course. So I thank you for watching our channel Redefining Internal Audit. Please give your inputs and give your suggestions or in case of any query, please don't forget to comment, and also you can also email us. And I wish you all the very best of luck. Thank you so much. Thanks again.